So I really don't like it when splitters have rods that come out of the front, but this one, you can stand on it. It's carbon, it's very strong. Yeah, so because it's carbon, it's incredibly rigid.
Man, my heart just sank. I was like, no!
Welcome back to another episode of Build Biology. I'm Nads, he's Dan, and I brought one of my mostest favoriteest things ever, Honda, of course.
Always a Honda.
Good old buddy of mine, Amir Bentatou, time attack superstar, beautiful Porsche, but he brought one of his Honda-powered vehicles here today. And best part is, drove it here.
Drove it. I saw him around the corner and I was just blown away already. I just can't even wait to just dive into it.
I can't wait to see this one.
Well, look who drove in. We have Amir. Amir, can you tell the people a bit about yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. My name is Amir Bentatou, and this is the RS Future Coil Rad Street Class Time Attack NSX, our demo car and my latest project.
That he drove here. That he drove here.
Surprisingly, it's actually pretty comfortable and drives really well. And my intention when I built it was to build something that I could still enjoy on the street. As much as I love driving cars on the racetrack, it's really nice to just hop in and go to, Cars and Coffee or just take it for a spin.
And the exterior is just gorgeous.
Thank you.
The paint is gorgeous. Can we get into, like, this is not factory?
No.
None of it really looks factory to me. Can you explain the exterior a little bit?
So the only thing that's factory left on it is the roof and the doors. Everything else has been pretty much modified. We're running an Eyes Impact front half bumper, Yakota Bodycraft front fenders, Marga Hills side skirts, Marga Hills wide rear quarter panels, an RS Future front aero package, which is the front splitter with tunnels in it, the three-dimensional front end plates, and wheel S-flaps. The car is pretty light, thanks to, between the engine package, all of the fiberglass components on the car, and then what we've done, basically with the rest of the car, we cut a significant amount of weight, and it weighs about 700 pounds less than it did from the factory. Wow. Yeah, 2,300 pounds.
And then the paint.
And then the paint is GTR Midnight Purple 2. It was a color that I kind of had been dying to paint a car, and when I knew that I was going to basically have to repaint the entire thing, it was something that was surprisingly difficult to do. Finding the paint was really challenging, but it ended up being worthwhile. It's probably my favorite part about the car.
Oh yeah, I love it.
Thank you.
This is one of those colors that's always just popped to me that I've always wanted an excuse to use as well.
Exactly.
And it really looks good up close. And I love that there's bugs on it.
Yeah, it's...
Because he drove it. It's not a show car, man. It's all business. And how wide is it? Like it's quite a bit over fender, huh?
Yeah, so the fronts are about 1.5 inches wider. So this is an 17 by 9 plus 15. We're going to move to an 18, 10.5 plus 15 to really widen the front, and then go even wider in the rear to really maximize the body. We have up to a 295 tire, and we're going to try to run that front and rear.
This is massive carbon wing. It looks cool, man. It's a really different offset than...
Thank you. We make this in-house at RS Future, which is my shop. For this class, you have to have a single element wing, and most of them are pretty small. So we built something large and then try to put as much carbon as we could. So carbon on the deck, the end plates, and the uprights to keep it as light as possible. This entire wing setup weighs 7 pounds.
7 pounds?
Yeah, for how large it is.
And it is chassis mounted, right?
It is chassis mounted. In this angle, we have it very mild. It's probably about 400 pounds of downforce, and then at full tilt with the larger end plates and the gurney flap, it's almost 1,000 pounds.
So that took quite a bit of testing for you guys to figure this stuff out then.
The biggest thing that has been a challenge is balancing the suspension with the aero package. Every time we'd go out, the car was just really loose, and then we ended up with this final setup as it is to balance the front. And even then at Road Atlanta, it was a bit on the loose side, so we may start to add a little bit more angle to it.
As much as you like to spend time on the exterior, it's right here. We might as well talk about this.
Talk about the engine. So this is kind of, I guess you could say, the standout for this car is the fact that it is K-swapped. This was, I think, like the second in the country. And now we've made it a bit more common and easier because I worked together with Innovative and we made a mount kit for the car. It's a K20 Z1 2-liter with drag cartel cams. We focused primarily on getting the turbo sizing right to match with the type of driving we do. Because we're limited to street tires, something that has too much of a kick would just get wheel spin. So we went with the Borg-Warner EFR 7163.
Okay.
Fairly small turbo, but perfectly matched for this. Instant response. It feels almost like a naturally aspirated car on track. We have a Prackworks carbon fiber intake manifold.
That is so slick.
We thought we were going to lose power to get drivability, and we ended up picking up 44 wheel horsepower with just the manifold.
Wow.
So really impressive. Yeah.
40?
Yeah, at the same
Wow.
boost level. For the transmission, which was the biggest challenge with this car, we run a Samsonis 6-speed Dogbox with dog engagement and straight cut gears.
Because you can't run a sequential.
Exactly. So we have to run an H pattern, and this was by far the best option we could find.
Yes.
And it's worked really well. We were basically going through a transmission every event before.
On the factory one?
On the factory one, and even modified gear sets. So we were putting like gear sets, trying different things, and we were just blowing them up. We put this in, and we haven't looked back since. It's become a non-issue.
So why the K20 over 24?
The K20, the power delivery is a little bit more what I prefer. The K24 does have a little bit more torque, but high-end, like top-end power, they'll make about the same. And because of, again, the drivability and the street tires, I wanted something that came on a little bit more linearly. And the K20 does that.
Doesn't step out on you, kick you in the ass coming out.
Exactly. And then also RPM, I feel more comfortable running a K20 at that RPM. Piston speeds on the K20 are a little bit better. For anything turbo and road race, my personal preference is the K20.
You're running extended period of time.
Yeah.
Not just 8 seconds down the strip. So
Exactly.
yeah, I totally understand that. Speaking of linear and the boost and all of that, when are you seeing boost? When are you seeing full boost?
We see full boost around 3,500 RPM, 3,800 RPM, and we rev it out to, red line is 9,000. We normally shift it at 8, so we're basically between, with how the transmission ratios are, we're essentially 6,500 to 9 the entire time, so we're always in full boost. If we're getting a little bit of, let's say out of a hairpin, we're getting a bit too much wheel spin, we can just short shift it, and the gear ratios are so close, and the torque is still linear
60.
enough, yeah, that we're pretty much always in power and have good acceleration.
Were you able to choose the gear set from Samsonis?
The gear set itself, I believe, they will make you custom gears, but we mapped it out and the gear set looked perfect, and then they let you change the final.
So you're not stuck in between gears.
Yeah, exactly.
So on this current setup, how much power do you make?
On low boost, we make 468, and we've never downloaded it on high boost. I would guess probably around like 500, 525 maybe, possibly a little bit more. Low boost is 24 pounds, high boost is 32.
And how much does the car weigh?
2,300 pounds, right around 23.
Dude, this has to be a rocket ship.
It definitely moves. It's the fastest car I've ever owned, by far.
Really?
Yeah,
I'm not saying a lot because you've had some cool stuff.
Thank you. Thank you.
Is there any way we can see this turbo setup?
Yeah.
Because I feel like it's fairly low. I kind of peeked at it. It looks fairly low back here and tucked in.
The turbo used to be mounted on top of the transmission. It's a common area for K-Series. It's called a sidewinder. Yeah. And I really wanted to bring this, the center of gravity on the car down as much as possible. So everything on the car has been, if it was mounted high, we've mounted it low. And the turbo that was my biggest request with Proto Machine when they made the manifold, was I wanted the turbo as low as possible for CG, and then also I wanted more of a straight tubular manifold. So that runs straight to the Borg-Warner 7163. And then obviously with it down here, the exhaust is shorter, the wastegate dump pipe is shorter, so it just weighs less. So the goal was just to get it as light as possible, as short as possible, and with the direct run to the turbo.
So that's cool. What I noticed here, which was very difficult to see because you have this trunk space in between. But yeah, the header runs really smooth into that turbo.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
just goes straight
important.
into the turbo. We picked up 60 wheel horsepower with the manifold.
Wow.
At the same boost level. So it's crazy. We keep
all these
picking
manifolds are really adding up.
Yeah.
You've already got 100 horsepower.
Out of just
manifolds.
Yeah, we were making around 370 before. Now we're at 468.
That's so bright.
Thank you. So up front, unfortunately, this area isn't too pretty because it's where we hide a lot of stuff. We have the battery and a lot of the cooling here. I tried to keep as much stock as possible, primarily to make it easy for the development process. Like if you change the entire car and you change everything, the shakedown process becomes a lot more challenging.
I've tried to explain that to a lot of people, and I think it gets overlooked because they get too in depth with it. It's like, if you change everything, then you have to think about everything.
And making the development small chunks makes it a lot easier, especially since we made a pretty big change and it was a huge development process to get, like that engine in this car was very unhappy for about a year. And then we have this is the tank for the heat exchanger for the water to air intercooler. And of course we have
That's fairly small too, but I mean, really it's not that big of a setup. So.
Exactly, it's a small.
And there's a lot of plumbing.
There's a lot of plumbing, so that's the thing. We didn't want too much, we wanted as much water in there as we needed and no more because it does weigh a lot.
Yep.
So to keep the weight down. So we run AN lines from the back of the car to the front of the car, and we have a Coil rad heat exchanger in front of the radiator that cools that. There's normally a carbon duct or vent actually that's right there. We pulled it out to repair it. It got cracked. So normally you actually don't even see any of this.
So it just comes out through the hood vent?
Yeah, it goes out through the hood vents. So that typically goes up to the hood vents, and then any excess air gets routed out of those.
Does that put any downforce down for you?
It does. So that's why we've had such a struggle getting enough rear downforce. Is most cars you buy a production car and they produce front lift, or the total car produces lift, and then you're fighting that. The NSX from the factory makes either zero lift or downforce. And what we found was with the large splitter, the splitter tunnels, and then routing all of the air through the radiator and out, we were basically creating a tremendous amount of front downforce, and balancing it with a single element wing was getting challenging. So that is correct. Like it helps a lot. It is an often overlooked but very important part of front downforce.
Yeah, and it's amazing that not only does this look good, but the function's great.
Yeah.
You know, because sometimes there's not a good happy medium. Like, it's just, it either looks cool and doesn't do shit, or it kind of looks a little bit funky and it's pulling the car straight down to the ground trying to drive under a tunnel. And
like we were saying, kind of aesthetics are important to me, so I really don't like it when splitters have rods that come out of the front, but this one, you can stand on it, it's carbon, it's very strong. Yeah, so because it's carbon, it's incredibly rigid.
Man, my heart just sank. I was like, no! Yeah, so I can see a bit of the suspension going on here. Can we explain what's going on with the actual suspension, what you guys are running?
Definitely.
We might have to pull a wheel off if you're cool with that.
Let's do it, 100%.
Underneath, massive brakes, stop tech.
An off-the-shelf StopTech STR40 caliper. We use WinMax brake pads to go with it, along with their fluid. Without the ABS, this proved to be a really awesome setup that was still pretty easy to modulate. These are, I think, 8 pounds, 7 pounds for the caliper. And the new competition ones.
It doesn't look like that. I mean, it looks huge. It looks like it would weigh a lot.
Exactly. And the trophy one, they have like a lot of reliefs. You can kind of see in the corners here where they machined it out to get it as light as it is. And the impressive thing is that there are a lot of lightweight calipers out there, but this is one of the most rigid despite the weight. And brake flex is a big thing where you get pad knockback and things like that on track, which you might not notice on the street. And then to go with it, we have our suspension, which is the KW Club Sport. Again, an off-the-shelf unit using KW springs. It's performed flawlessly. KW is probably my favorite off-the-shelf coilover because we slap them onto cars and they just work. Often whenever we put a coilover on, if it's any other brand, we're chasing the spring rates, trying to get it right. With these, we found that we put them on and out of the box, they're good. We just have to modify them. You know, let's say if the car makes a lot of downforce, a little bit stiffer. But other than that, by far my favorite coilovers.
So this is still in the R&D phase?
Yeah, the car is kind of always in an R&D phase, but that's since we're changing the wheel and tire setup. Yeah, and then these will probably get we'll get ones that are the exact size we need.
That's cool.
Yeah.
All right, man. Let's pop that baby on, and I want to check out the engine, or the. I was gonna say engine bay. No, stupid. Check out the interior.
Again, my goal was to keep it pretty streetable, so we run a full interior from the B-pillar forward, partially because I wanted it to be a street car, and also because the rules require it in Global Time Attack in the street class. Everything B-pillar forward has to be there. The only thing that has been changed, because they allowed it, was the center console being carbon fiber. We run a Vertex King steering wheel. I'm a big kind of JDM fanboy, so everything on the car has Japanese roots. An AIM dash for data logging. So we run an AIM MXS dash, and that gives us basically all the readouts, logging, safety parameters, that kind of stuff. A hybrid racing shifter that goes to hybrid racing cables to the back, and a Battlecraft shift knob. We run a Brid ProFace Hans compatible seat, so try to keep it as safe as possible for the driver's seat.
It's cool looking seat too.
Yeah, exactly. That was like one of the big things.
Beautiful, yeah. So ECU, Honda?
Honda. So again, keeping it simple. We will be switching that out. We're going to switch to a Cyvex ECU very soon. But for now, we're running the K Pro and it's getting the job done. Realistically, the only reason we're switching it is for traction control and safeties. Yeah.
Man, I just love the simplicity, the interior, the full door cards, everything.
Full door cards.
Straight up street car, man.
So.
And straight up race car.
Yeah.
Both. It's like you have the best of both worlds. It's really a gorgeous thing to see.
Yeah, it's like everything you need, nothing you don't. No
straight up
giant
race car
screens
stuff.
or anything.
Yeah, just good. Well, before we jet, can we hear it?
Yeah, no problem. Let's see. Luckily, it's fires right up, and we drove it here so it's warm.
That's also a Honda.
Yeah.
Sounds so good. That spool. It's pretty. Sounds great, man.
Thank you. Thank you.
Remember the exhaust is that big. All right, dude, that's cool.
Cool. I wish you could hear it at full tilt because it sounds so different.
I bet it does.
That was actually, it's funny, that was my biggest concern when we pulled the C-Series out. I loved the way the car sounded with the V6. And I was like, man, this thing's gonna sound like crap with a 4-cylinder in there. And after getting it in the first day on track, I was like, it sounds like a Group B car, or like the old Toyota Eagle Mark IIIs. Yeah, between, like we don't run a blow-off valve, so the compressor surge and everything just sounds so gnarly.
I do the same thing, and everyone's like, you need a blow-off valve.
You don't,
whatever, dude.
No. Modern turbo technology, you don't need it. Wait.
Wait.
Don't want it.
Ah, dude, it's so sick. Well, we're gonna go get lunch.
Cool.
I'm gonna make him take me home.
Right in the carbon seat of death.
Coolest car I think I've ever seen drive here. Like, I'm so jealous of that car.
I also love, like most people with any given car, uses a specific aero kit from start to finish.
Yep.
He mixed and matched, but it looks so proper all together.
Beautiful.
It came out so nice.
It's all functional.
And K-Series swap. Back in the day, I would have said that's, even Honda to Honda, somewhat blasphemy going from a V6 to an inline 4.
Yeah.
But it makes so much sense from a chassis standpoint.
Lighten it up, made a lot more power. I thought it was amazing that just changing 2 manifolds, he picked up basically 100 horsepower. That's insane. It's incredible.
And also, this is like his mild street build. I can't wait to see when he goes unlimited on an NA1 chassis.
I'm gonna have to catch up with him at Cars and Coffee and get a ride along.
Completely.
Oh, you want me to just slide in? Please. From over there.
Moonwalk it all the way from over there. Such a good sound.
All right, we're good.